All right, I'm going to call the Select Board meeting of Tuesday, February 25th to order. And the first item is approval of the agenda.
I move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anything that anyone would like to amend the agenda with?
Do I need to do that?
We'll do it with the consent
Okay.
agenda. Yeah. Or we can do it now.
No, it's fine. We can wait.
So I'm going to just do it now so that
Okay.
we got it. So we're going to pull out of the consent agenda, out of the town manager's report, the speakers list for town meeting. And we're going to move that to number 10 so we can just talk through it and envision how that's going to go and make sure that we've at least addressed that amongst the board. So all in favor of approving the agenda with the minor amendments?
Yeah.
The consent
Aye.
agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And is Isabel on or no? Okay. One absent, 6 approved. Next is approval of the consent agenda.
I move.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Anything in the consent agenda anyone would like to speak to? Minutes and everything are good? Okay, all in favor of approving the consent agenda as drafted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, next is citizen comments. Is there anybody here for something? Please.
You have a hand raised online. Yeah, anywhere.
Hi, I'm Ann Christie, and so many of you are familiar and 2 of you are new to me. Anyway, thank you for doing this incredible job that you do. I could never do your job. I wanted to turn on my timer so I can time myself here. I have 2 questions for you all. There's not a problem, but my gut wants me to speak up proactively and just bring your attention to a couple points. So I'm being courageous. I'm speaking up. We've been seeing an increase in lawlessness in our country, starting at the federal level, and it comes down to all levels, and it's causing a lot of harm to a lot of people. And I live in Middlebury because it felt like the nicest place in Vermont for me to live, and it still does. And we all, as you do, need our safety. You've done a great job of supporting our police force in from what I understand, and so the questions are too, just for us to consider, and if you've any, whatever you have to say on it is fine, or not. First off, right now we're just seeing, the little seeds of change happening, and as time goes on, we don't know what's going to happen. And so, is our select board? The one question is, how is our select board going to support and ensure ethical responses from our local law enforcement to have that continue? The second is, what is the select board's plan, or what will be planned for the potential down the road? I know that police departments are heavily funded federally, federal dollars. If that goes away, how do we want to respond to keep our community safe? And as I said, there's not a problem now, but we all need to stick together and support each other, and I just wanted to speak up proactively.
Anybody have any comments on that?
You want to answer the federal?
I don't think we're taking any federal dollars
We
on
have
that.
not, we don't
so-
have,
So
we'll have
that's,
an opportunity to vote next week on our budget, which is a fully funded and well-funded police force, and I don't think we take any federal, I don't.
very minimal.
There's
There's
some
grants.
Yeah.
They can make me apply for grants for some stuff, but it's not how they're funded.
Oh, nice to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you're right, we have an excellent police force, and the line of command goes from us through Mark to the chief.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Sam. So, David?
David, your mic is open on our
Are you
end.
there, David?
Great, yeah, I didn't realize
Oh.
my mic was open, I apologize. I was trying to figure out how not to get that good-looking photo of me on the screen. But, I'll take it.
Yeah, it looks
Select
good.
Board, I'm here tonight I'm pleased to participate tonight to register my dissatisfaction with the Department of Public Works' recent efforts with respect to sidewalk snow removal, and to plead for it to be avoided in the future. And before everyone throws up their shields, I'm not here to disparage DPW or its people. I'm not saying they don't work to the best of their ability, and I've already had a brief correspondence with David DiBiase on the topic. But what they're doing did not work last week, at least with respect to sidewalks, and I'd sure like to fix it if we can. I would characterize the sidewalk snow removal, the 16 February storm, as close to a failure. I give it a D-. It did not work last week. I understood when the walks were there the day of the storm, they were going to be delayed until Monday. I understood when the first pass came and it knocked down the levels to 2 inches of snow on most walks. What I didn't understand was packed down snow that resulted on the walks, and especially bridges, until yesterday, more than 1 full week of the storm. To me, this speaks to consistent deprioritization of pedestrians over resulting in clear roads. Sidewalk plows could have been doing the same. Maybe they were broken. Maybe the operators were ill. Maybe they had quit. Maybe they got back to what was considered a higher priority. Maybe DPW lacked the supplies to salt or sand the walks in order to make them more navigable. Whatever it was, we should strive to make sure they have the resources they need to get the job done the next time, and that we treat pedestrian travel as we treat vehicle travel. No one would have tolerated our roads being in the same condition as our walks. Let me be clear, this is not about me. I'm fortunate to have the means not to have to walk if I don't want to, and to have the agility to navigate poor conditions when I do. It's about the 1% that can't or don't drive. It's about the elderly couple I saw arm in arm trying to cross South Street through unplowed walks and snow banks as high as a person. It's about the mother I saw pushing a baby stroller in the street to the hospital near Porter Field because the sidewalk was impassable. It's about the pedestrians I saw slipping and sliding on our bridges on Main and Cross Streets. It's about the visitors to town who struggle to navigate our business sidewalks. Most people don't think about the sidewalks because they don't use them. We're a car culture. What we should do is good a job for pedestrians as we do for cars, and for those that can't drive, as so many of us are fortunate to be able to do. I've only been here for 13 winters, fewer than most in the room, but I've seen this year upon year, and I was mostly resigned to my fate until Sunday when I walked to church through the college campus and saw that every sidewalk the college maintains was clear, and every sidewalk the town maintains was covered with snow. They experienced the same snow event we did. Can we not benchmark whatever equipment, process, or people they use and endeavor to duplicate it. I would also offer that our town citizens could accept the responsibility to clear their walks after DPW makes their first pass. The sidewalk plow will never be able to get down to the pavement, but a person with a shovel certainly can. I've suggested this before in small groups and I've had my head chopped off. It's an emotional issue for many, but I grew up where there was no town plow and it was a resident's responsibility to clear their walk, just that it's their responsibility to keep their walk clear in the summer. I don't want to solve this tonight, and I've heard all the reasons that things are the way they are, but I think we can do better. We won't do better, though, if we don't acknowledge that we fell short of the mark last week, at least with respect to sidewalks, and commit to tackling the problem going forward. I know there are tens of more pressing problems, but if we don't hot wash this right now, while the lessons are fresh, we'll be having the same conversation next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. I understand it's not easy.
Understood.
We've done it already, but it doesn't need to be complicated. It seems to me that with the right approach, the right people, the right equipment, and most importantly, the right attitude, it can be solved. In my former life, we used to say that in conclusion, I understand this is a first world problem, but it affects the least among us the worst. And I want to be abundantly clear that I appreciate the work DPW did for us in every other respect during the storm, and that they do for us every day. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. We'll take a look at that. I think that, did you still want to say something, Heather? Or?
I would like to, but I don't want to waste everyone's time.
Okay, we'll take that under advisement, Dave.
Can I just say one thing? The college has perfectly designed their sidewalks to be 5 foot and even wider. And the reason for that is so they have more efficient snow removal and equipment for snow removal. We do not, unless everyone like to significantly increase their taxes, we do not have the luxury of changing all of our sidewalks in town to 5 foot wide so that we can change the type of equipment we use to clear them. And DPW was at the infrastructure committee the Thursday before the storm, talking to us about sidewalk equipment that they've been struggling with all season, and we were aware of the issue, and they have been trying to address it, but the equipment, when you said plows, we have one plow for 18 miles of sidewalk. So just, sorry, I'll stop.
Over the years, the college has been required to have its walks wider, also to provide access for emergency equipment. There's not only snow plowing, there's a reason they have done that, and it's been a long process to do that. The campus is a little different, and other walks run along roads and so forth, so, yeah.
It also allows a machine with more horsepower than what we have.
It
Yeah.
just allows much more efficient.
I think the point's been made. David gave us quite an earful. I don't think any more needs to be said. We'll take a look at it, okay? Does it really need to be said, Ross?
I have something else I'd like to say.
Oh, please.
Ross Conrad, good evening. So as you know, there's significant numbers of residents in town that are concerned about protecting the aquifer that supplies the town with water. And we were concerned about the potential for PFAS contamination, especially in some of the pesticides being used at the airport. Back this summer, there was a request for the Selectboard to send a letter to VTrans to get information about what they're spraying. We did that, and VTrans got back to us and supplied the MSDS, the material safety data sheets that outline the active ingredients. But what we found is that in most of what they're using, there's significant numbers of ingredients that aren't included in those MSDS sheets. And so back in September, submitted another letter to the Select Board signed by 15 residents that live around the airport, asking for a follow-up to request more information of, how can, they said there's no PFAS in those pesticides, but how do they know if there's all these extra adjuvants and inert ingredients that aren't listed on the MSDS. And there were some other questions, hoping to follow up and keep that conversation going. And the minutes of that November 11th board meeting, it stated that Brian was going to work with Tom Hanley to draft a letter, and I'm wondering what the status of that letter is.
Mark and I just talked about that today because you called him earlier, and we never found the draft, so we definitely didn't do it. So Mark and I are going to work on that and get it done. I think during the change following that, the chief had other things on his plate, and it didn't get done. So
Should that get written and sent out? Would it be possible
we
to get
just
a
talked
copy
about.
when that happens? Just so I could see it, and
yeah.
then I won't have to bother you to find out what's going on.
Pesticides on the airport?
Yes, sir.
Yes. The airport right away?
The
Herbicide.
fence around it. They were using the herbicide on the perimeter fence. Yeah.
Okay, I'll look for that. Thank you.
All right, Ross.
Thanks, Ross.
Judy.
Judy Weiger Groves, the small hamlet of East Middlebury. I just want to follow up with my comments from this past Tuesday's meeting. I asked at the time, so I am asking again, that those comments be included in the public record in their entirety, verbatim, and in the event that you haven't seen them, I happen to have a few copies. Share?
Oh,
Come on.
all right, I can share.
No, you have one.
No, actually, make sure Mark gets one, please.
There you go. And with that,
I do, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thanks, Judy. Yes, sir.
Brian? It's Andy Sambrook from Airport Road in Middlebury. I know some of you. Certainly know Farhad, my neighbor. I came here tonight to listen later to the presentation about the airport, but it seemed to. I want to raise an issue around the airport communications updates.
So can I just interject? They've changed the person, and I've talked to him. He's
What's
next
I haven't
week
said
we're
anything.
going to have an update.
Sorry?
Next week he's going to provide us an update. There's been nobody doing it, and we have a new guy that's the
Right.
airport manager, and he knows that he owes us an update.
Well, the last update was April 2024. He owes us, and these were. I mean, the purpose of just so that everyone I know you understand, Brian, but I just want to make it a public comment here. The purpose of those updates was, as VTrans said, it was to enhance communication between the Agency of Transportation, Town of Middlebury, Selectboard, airport businesses, users, airport neighbors, and the public to assure regular centralized communications to highlight news, events, issues, and opportunities, and to reduce miscommunications between all parties. That's what the agreement was, and it was to be formalized in a monthly. It was to be share routine communications which shall be prepared by the agency, and this is another piece of this, and the Select Board airport representative, currently Nick Artem. So is Nick going to help prepare these? Is Nick still the Select Board airport representative?
We don't have an airport representative anymore because there's been nothing going on there.
Well, we don't know there's nothing going on there, Brian, because we're not getting the updates.
Okay.
So if there isn't another airport representative, maybe can I request that the Select Board think about actually appointing one? And again, these were supposed to be posted monthly. The last posting was April 2024, so that's...
They're tracking quarterly.
Well, it says monthly, Brian. I think,
Yeah,
so.
they're not prepared to do monthly, they're prepared to do quarterly.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked with Michelle, and she's got a new airport manager, and I've talked to him this week, last week, and he knows he owes us one.
Right.
And so, and he said they were on another project, but, and that's why he's not here
Right.
tonight, but he's hoping to get here so that you guys can meet him, and
Yeah.
he's going to provide us.
Well, that's good news. Well, I only knew about the presentation tonight because it was on the select board agenda.
And this is just a,
That's not how it's supposed to work, though, right?
you know, this gets old, Andy. All, this is us hearing, this is how it works. We don't go to you first. They're coming here to tell us what they're looking
Right.
at and to walk through a process. This is not pitching to us and then going and building. This is a year-long process that will engage you as they do
Right.
an environmental assessment.
And what I was referring to, the news and the happenings and the events and issues and opportunities.
Do you know that we're the only airport in the state they have to do that for because of guys like you?
I don't know that, no.
Yes. They don't do it at every airport. They don't do it at any other airport.
Right, but there's,
And we've got them doing it.
right,
And I'm trying to follow up with them on that, and I called them.
right, okay, good.
So,
But I do want to formally request that that we have a select board airport representative, because then it wouldn't,
anybody want to do it?
uh-huh,
The select board represents you. And it's, well, if you don't think so, then vote somebody else in.
but I'm confused as to, why did you appoint one then, if there was no
Because
belief
at
that
the
there was a
time
need?
that we appointed one, we had a major undertaking going on at the airport.
Yeah,
And there was a need for a liaison. We haven't done anything at the airport. Now we may need to address something if this visitor center that they're gonna start the process of has, you know, major implications for the community.
The
Andy, can we
distinction-
move on with the agenda? If you're concerned about the airport, what's the concern? And then let's get it on the docket and.
No, the concern is that we haven't had an update since April 2024 that was promised.
Sure.
Right, that's the concern. The concern also is that there's no select board or airport representative anymore. And to your point about us, if that is true that we are the only airport that they do this for, we can talk about why Middlebury Airport is a unique situation in the state, given the proximity, the heavy residential area around there that creates this neighborhood situation, and so
That's not unique.
Okay. Okay.
There's houses around all of the state airports. Maybe not at the same density, but there is. You
Well,
don't
I
have an
think-
East Middlebury, for instance, but you do have developments and you have houses. We went through this years ago when it first started, and I went, and I looked on the maps of all the state airports, and there's houses around almost every one of the state airports.
Okay. All I was doing tonight is public comment period, and I made a public comment, and so that's all I wanted to do, Ryan.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got a quick question about airport representative. We appointed Nick Ardim at that time. So unless we had dropped him, I'm thinking that he's still the.
If he would like to, I mean, he hasn't done anything. We haven't asked him to do anything.
Yeah, I think, but as an appointee, he's still appointed, right? He is still a designated liaison for the.
That's my
for the state
understanding.
board, right?
Yeah.
Unless we said no more.
Okay.
Right after town meeting, the board takes up appointments and liaisons, so, and I think, how this shared or meted out is how we worked out with the other appointments. But
What are you sharing?
Pardon?
I'm sorry? We're just talking about if we do have a liaison to the airport, and maybe it's just, maybe we have one officially in name. We haven't done anything with the airport, so we need to talk about that at the board level.
My suggestion is, if you have
Come
one.
up and tell us your name.
Yeah, please do.
Come up and tell us your name.
if you have somebody with acute concern about his surrounding in the area, is my friend over here, Eugene Roy. Step up.
This is Mark Trudeau.
Yeah.
For people.
Hey, Mark.
How's everybody doing?
Again, hi, Eugene.
So this is all about the airport?
No,
Okay.
no, it's
Because
just,
we did not, this is not the night to talk about the airport. This is why I'm getting frustrated.
okay, well, I'm not here to argue anything right now. I'm just here, I haven't been to any of these appointments at all, or I wanna hear about the new hangars coming in. And I'm sure everybody here is aware of how Nicky bought Johnson's 46 building lots behind my house, right? Everybody knows
Who
that?
purchased it?
And
Nicky.
Kevin Elnicki.
Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah, he bought it from A. Johnson 3 weeks ago. He came over to my house with the head engineer, and he is, we don't know what he's planning on doing. I heard he came here to check, see what the permitting is, but there is some permitting that's gonna be done.
That doesn't come through the select board, Eugene. That goes through the zoning.
Right. No, I didn't know if you guys realize that he's planning on.
We don't have any, that goes through the development review board and the zoning office, so.
Right, and
It's not the select board.
you're right.
Two totally different
Yeah.
things.
Good that everybody knows.
Yeah,
No.
it's good to hear, but it has nothing to do with, we don't have any oversight over that.
Right, that goes upstairs. No, I know that. I just didn't know if you guys all realize that this is in motion now. There's 46 houses, or 46 lots that's right up against the road.
I just have to say,
Yeah.
Select Board was involved for a piece of that because there was an agreement connected with that prior development between Carrera and A. Johnson. And,
And then-
no, sorry, thinking of another name. About the upgrade of the, Schoolhouse Hill Road. There's a section that's one lane,
If they develop it.
Right,
if they were to develop it.
if it,
So,
right.
that was negotiated, there was a town financial involvement, so that's why the select board was involved before. And that would have to be completely looked at, because it's been many years. And,
Right, that has been a minute. No, I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that it is rolling. So it's something,
That's again an entire process, because that's large enough that would have to go through Act 250. And
Right.
so that
it's good to look at the whole picture.
Sure.
Airport side, residential side, everything. That's all, I'm sure we're all with our eyes open, seeing what's gonna happen.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This will be the last citizens' comment, so
Hi,
we get
Ellen
on with
Cronin,
business.
South Street. I am a walker. I am a regular pedestrian, and yes, the snow was bad. But I would like to clearly state that we, as a township, should not be using the college and their small amount of sidewalks as our base to look at. If we did that, we should be looking at their price per square foot. So I just want to make sure that there is another view on the table. I did walk in it. It was difficult. And I completely get that there are concerns, but we live in a snowy area and we have options for people who have trouble with their mobility. And I think that we can rely on those and should not be spending loads and loads of money to make sure that we have pristine sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we good to move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, Emily.
Okay, I'll just do this one. All right, so
Take the oxygen sensors?
yeah, so first time on there, we ran through the infrastructure committee, and the infrastructure committee agreed to support it. It is for new dissolved oxygen sensors for the plant. So essentially the way that our sequencing batch reactors work, we use dissolved oxygen sensors in the basins to run our blowers, and allows us to cycle our blowers on and off to maintain a level between 1 part per million and 5 part per million dissolved oxygen in the SBRs. The parts are unavailable for those dissolved oxygen sensors. We are starting to actually lose the functionality of them. And when we lose the functionality of them, we actually have to just run it in an automated time mode, which over-irrigates the basins and wastes electricity. So we have worked with the designer, the engineer, Jenny Oster, of the new plant, and picked out matching hardware that would be used and installed in the new plant anyway. And that is what's on your, for approval tonight, is 4 brand new dissolved oxygen sensors for our SBRs that will be compatible with all the new equipment that's being put in. And the infrastructure committee approved a little bit above because they'd like me to get basically a good amount of spare parts with it so we don't have downtime if we have any issues moving forward. So that's what that first item is on your agenda.
Any questions on that? Comments?
Nope, I'm gonna move to approve the 4 dissolved oxygen sensors and controllers from Aqua Aerobic Systems Incorporated for a price not to exceed $60,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed?
Okay.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Now you're on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Hello.
Emily?
So the first item that I'm talking about is the skate park.
I'm sorry, Emily. Does Jill wanna come? Do you wanna make Jill a, she's
Oh,
in
make
the.
her a panelist, yep.
Yeah,
You,
sorry to interrupt.
Nope, that's fine.
I just thought she might.
I think she'll probably chime in the second piece, but more so than in this one. The skate park engineering agreement, we issued an RFQ in the fall and received responses from 8 different vendors that specifically design skate parks. And so we sent out an RFP to 4 of those and only got a response from 3. But of those, we reviewed them all and determined that New Line Skate Park Design Services was the best fit for the town, most qualified and provided the services that we were looking for, community engagement, funding opportunities, things like that. We had good experience with. So we are recommending the contract with New Line Skate Park Design Services for $59,104.97. Or wait, sorry, that's the fund balance. So this is paid jointly through the skate park capital fund, and then also the fundraising that the skate park group has been doing internally. They'll be transferring that over to the town to pay for the contract.
Cool.
Pretty cool. Some of these pretty complex.
They are pretty
I
complex.
was just expecting a few ramps and,
Yeah.
loop-de-loops, and you look at what they have done for projects.
What I really liked about New Line, and I know it's a conversation we had internally with the infrastructure, they incorporate a lot of art work and sort of sculpture into it to make it, I think they've found that it makes it less prone to graffiti and things like that if you sort of develop it with an artful eye. So I appreciated that aspect.
That was a pretty impressive proposal. They got their stuff together.
Yeah, all of the ones that were submitted were pretty in-depth and thorough,
Wow.
so it's pretty cool.
Interesting to read.
So we're missing Isabel, who would love to make the motion. Would someone else like to?
I'll move to approve the proposed engineering proposal agreement with New Line Skate Parks for the design of a community skate park at a cost of $55,090.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Land and Water Conservation Fund grant?
Land Water Conservation Fund. So this is the grant application that we came to the select board back in November for permission to apply for the pre-application. And so we did get approved for the full submittal. It's a pretty hefty grant, just in the work that goes into applying for it. It has both state and federal involvement in choosing the people that are funded from it. So it initially goes through a state level review, and then if it gets approved there, it gets passed off to the national level. And so it takes a long time. I think the awards are next June. Yeah, anticipated grant application next spring. So I think the benefit of it is that it gives time for fundraising, and we'll have the construction designs by then, which I think helps just formulate a goal for people.
Sure.
Just understanding what we're working towards. Yeah, so I think there's, Ethan, you might be able to speak, or Jill, I think there's just over 3 million in this fund. And so we were proposing to submit in two different, sort of a phase 1 and phase 2. That way, if we didn't get accepted for the full amount, we could potentially break off a part of the project. And I think they've had a positive reception of doing that historically. I think this is a grant that the town has utilized 3 or 4 different times. David might have more background on that, but there are a few different projects that the town's worked with them on.
Dave, have we used the grant, this grant fund on other projects for the town that you know of?
Yeah, in the research that Jill and I reviewed the other day, it looks like there is a history for the LWCF grant.
Yeah.
At least twice, I believe. The teen center may have been involved.
Oh, right, the teen,
as the warming hut.
Yep.
Oh,
This is
yeah.
back in the mid-90s.
That was a
And
while
then there
ago,
was a mid-80s one that I can't recall, but there was... Yeah. Prior to that, Jill, I'm paraphrasing that sheet you sent me, but I believe going way back, the school district utilized it too.
Yeah, that one I don't know.
He's gonna light off here in a minute.
It's a quiz question for
I
Fred.
helped them look it up in the archive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a bit of a history to it.
Any questions on this? Pleasure of the board.
I'll move to authorize the Middlebury Skatepark to proceed with applying for the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant for an amount not to exceed $506,250,000.
$506,250.
Something. $506,250.
Yeah.
Is that right?
$500,000, that's correct.
Come on, that's not.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And Jill, if we get this grant, you're committed to fundraising for the other half, because we have to match this? Is that-
Absolutely, yeah, we have a whole fundraising plan laid out for the next year.
Yeah, okay.
I'll tell you, what will help you is once you get a design, talk to the library and talk to the town hall theater. The design is what allows or motivates people to donate.
Definitely, yeah, we're excited to get this design done. Hopefully, we'll have a conceptual design by the summer. That will be a huge help.
Okay.
And there's several other state and foundation grants that we'll be going for later in the summer and the fall too.
It's a skateboarding park,
Yep.
Yeah.
Doesn't just have to be skateboards
so
though.
you can't wait.
Could be
Good.
rollerblades.
Look forward to everybody having a good time.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and Mark? Do you have anything else, Emily?
I just want one note, I did mention it at infrastructure, we did get accepted for SRF funding for the water tank. So
Yeah.
it gives us a
Fantastic.
much lower interest rate than a bond.
That's
Yay.
great.
Won't be bonding at all for it.
Wow.
That's
Rock
great.
on.
That should also help us with the next bond vote,
Yeah.
because we've been really batting 1,000 years, so. I know.
Yeah.
Thanks for the good news. Mark?
Okay. So this is more or less a housekeeping topic that we'll revisit in the spring when you make appointments. But my predecessors also served as the town's service officer, connecting residents with social services when needed, and as the delinquent tax collector in the event that actions related to overdue tax bills are necessary. Hope that's not the case, but so we're looking tonight for a formal appointment by the board confirming that you'd like to continue this practice.
Somebody want to make it?
I'll move to appoint Mark Prohensky to the role of of Middlebury Service Officer and Delinquent Tax Collector positions.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
Paul, we're ready for you. And do you have, are we gonna have his presentation up so that it's out to the audience too?
I also brought hard copies if people in the audience wanted them. I know the board has the copy.
Okay. They might want them to take, but I'm hoping that it's larger on the screen there.
I think it showed up there. Did it? That's a download. Under the internet page. I think it showed up here. Download.
Okay.
Okay, we're ready.
All right, thank you. I'm Paul McDonald with the consulting firm CHA. We're a consultant directly for the Vermont Department Agency of Transportation. So we were hired by them to do a review of a proposed small administration building.
Apologize. Sorry. 5 years.
Environmental study for the small administrative building at the airport that was ended in a master plan years ago. Now my
Share the screen. One moment, we'll just pull it up. Sorry about that. There we go. We can probably cycle that way. Yep.
Okay. My agenda is pretty quick. I just want the purpose here is to describe the environmental assessment process and give you an overview of what is being considered at the airport and talk about a schedule.
We're just gonna try. You can keep going. We're just gonna just try to share our screen in a second.
Okay.
Bear with us here.
David, click the share button.
Yeah, no, it's not appearing here, but we'll just do it.
Yeah, it's right there. There you go.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
So we'll just arrow through as we go.
Okay, so next, on slide 3, the we can go to the next slide.
Yep, we're just there. We
It
go.
takes a second.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, so the purpose of the presentation is VTrans wanted to come here. We asked the town if we could have a few minutes to present this upcoming project to give a heads up to the board and to the community of what the next project at the airport might be. And as part of this effort, we're scheduling 2 meetings. This is the first one. This is a more informal and not required by our process. VTrans wanted to go above and beyond based on the interest the community has had in the airport in the past. Once our study that we're doing now is done, we'll have a formal presentation. It will be a formal public hearing, and VTrans will again ask to use this building to have that public hearing sometime this summer. Okay, next. The study we're doing follows the National Environmental Policy Act, which is generic for all types of federal projects, including airports. And it follows the requirements set by federal law. It applies to federal actions, which can be a lot of different things. When we did the master plan a couple of years ago, that was a federal action when the FAA approved it. For this administration building, if the funding is approved for this in the future, that's the federal action. And this is why we're here to do this environmental assessment study.
So you're expecting FAA money to pay for the construction of this building?
V-Trans is applying for FAA money.
Okay.
They are hopeful that the funding will be in place.
Okay.
It's competitive.
Sure.
NEPA is a process, and we go through the process. There's a flow chart. I'm not going to read this whole flow chart, but on the left column, we've gone through the scoping. We've worked with FAA. They wanted to make sure we're going to cover all the aspects. And where we are today is a select board meeting on the left side there. After this meeting, we've actually already started the environmental review. Our reviewers are going through the NEPA process, looking at all the categories, and preparing our draft document for public review. After that document is available, and the state signs off on it, the FAA signs off on it, then it comes to the community, and we schedule the formal public hearing. After that, if FAA sees it's worthy, we'll finish the process, and the goal of V-Trans is for them to approve the environmental study, which is called a FONSI, a Finding of No Significant Impact. All projects have some impact. FAA will determine if it's significant or not. And if not, it could potentially proceed to the funding and development. So that's the process. FAA has lots of jargon. On the next slide, the proposed project is called the proposed action. And I'm going to describe what the proposed action is. It's simply a small administration building. I use the word administration often instead of terminal because most people think of a terminal building as what you see at a commercial airport. Everyone knows Middlebury is not a commercial airport. It's never going to be a commercial airport. It's not certified for commercial activity. So sometimes I say administration building.
Did you hear your words?
Just to, excuse me?
Did you hear your words?
What did I say? What words?
Commercial.
Commercial.
It's not. It
is not a commercial airport. It's not certified for a commercial airport. The master plan identifies that it's a general aviation airport. Yep. So what would be in the building? Nothing particularly outstanding, just a flight planning area, waiting area for pilots and passengers, a pilot lounge, potentially a small conference room, and of course restrooms. Now, in Vermont, there are 9 airports owned and operated by the state that have paved runways. Middlebury is the smallest one of those 9. It's going to stay the smallest one, and this building will be sized for that capability. When you go to, if you've ever flown out of Rutland, I have flown out of Rutland. For comparison, that terminal building is 8,000 square feet, and the one we're going to talk about here is under 2,000. Just for comparison, I've got a bunch of slides and illustrations on that. Okay, in the process of going through the environmental assessment, FAA requires you to look at alternatives. Even though this is just a small building, we still go through the process and look at alternatives. They always require you to describe the no-build alternative. That's pretty simple in this case. You would keep it as it is now. There is no terminal building now. There is businesses on the airport, which some people use those for some flight planning and to use the restrooms, but there is no public terminal administrative building right now. So that's the no-build alternative. The first development alternative we're looking at is on the next slide. It's in the northern location of the airport, and this slide, north is towards the left. And in this location, there's an open grass area shown that's right next to an area called the North Apron, where a lot of tie downs are. Aircraft are being tied down. That area is not flat. There are trees, there are some drainage facilities in there, and it certainly could work as one of the locations. It would require a decent amount of infrastructure for this small building. Because of that, V-Trans has decided not to advance this as an alternative in the east. They want to eliminate it. And that location, if you're familiar with the airport, when you're coming on Airport Road, it's just before you make the turn to the south. So that was considered but is dismissed in the study. So there's one more build alternative, and that turned out to be what V-Trans is going to advance, and that's the central location. If you're familiar with the airport, there's a main parking lot after you make the turn onto Airport Road. that's where the terminal building would be. Centralized, it's about equidistant from the north end of the runway to the south end of the runway. And you would also improve some parking. There's a patio out there for viewing. You would relocate that, but keep it. You'd have some fence projects. But those are the associated facilities to go with supporting the building. The next slide, we put a rendering together. On the left side is existing conditions, and you can see the auto parking lot in the background of that photo. That would be the location for the proposed terminal building. On the right side, you can see just a drawing of what the potential terminal building would be. You can see it will be integrated with the existing hangars on the facility and mostly use existing pavement, repurpose existing pavement that's already there at the airport. Okay, next. This is just another graphical illustration. Again, north is to the left. The light blue building would be that terminal building. It's shown here at 1,800 square feet. The small blue area next to it would be the relocated patio. There's a covering and a picnic table there. The dark blue is the small amount of additional pavement, apron pavement in front of the building. So visitors to the facility could park right in front of the building, come in and out of the airport, or use the restroom, do their flight planning. So that is the proposed action. I wanted to show some other examples. I said there are terminal buildings at every other airport that Vermont owns except Middlebury. If you go to the next slide.
Paul, sorry.
Yes.
I'm confused how cars would get to that side of the building to park there. If you go back one.
If you go back, where it's a new potential parking area is shown to the right of the
Oh, I see. The red area down there by the road. Gotcha. Okay.
You might not need it that large, but you'd be able to get off Airport Road, which this location of Airport Road isn't a town road. It's part of the it's part of the state property.
Right.
We still call it Airport Road. So it would be in that location, and the final design would determine that. But there is no design yet. It's just this environmental study.
Can I ask a question also?
Sure.
David, could you go back to the rendering slide?
Throwing out the one to the north.
Okay.
This one?
To the right of the proposed building is the hangar that used to be called the FBO hangar, fixed base operators hangar.
Yes.
And in the windows on the side of that used to be the space that accommodated these uses, and maybe still is.
It still is. It's
So-
not owned and operated by V-Trans. That's private use space. I've used it. They
Okay.
accommodate the public.
All right, I just was wondering, it still existed in.
Yeah, it definitely still exists. You'd have to zoom in to really see it, but you can see the door and the window right next to the big hangar door. That's what we use now when we're there. Yep.
V-Trans doesn't own that?
Yeah, they don't know, that's privately owned. That, and then the hangar to the further left are operated by J&M. They operate the maintenance shop there. They are a tenant of V-Trans. And they provide the maintenance service at the airport.
Thank you.
Okay, in the upper left, this is over in Springfield. There's a standalone terminal building at Springfield, and that's 1,800 square feet. On the right side, that's Morrisville Stowe Airport in Morristown. They have a 1,400 square foot terminal building that's operated there by the state. These are both standalone facilities. The one that's being suggested for Middlebury would also be a standalone building. But if you visit the other airports, many of them are a structure that's attached to a hangar. I'm bringing Franklin County Airport up as an example of that. It's attached to a large hangar. I really brought this up just to say there is no hangar or other facility proposed with the project of Middlebury, just a standalone building. Up north in Franklin County, the town of Highgate. Next slide, please. V-Trans is a little further along in providing a terminal building there. There's an old dilapidated building in I said the wrong airport. I said Franklin County Airport. This is at Northeast Kingdom Airport, which is in Newport, near Jay Peak. There's an old building there now. They're going to tear that down, and this is I think they're in the funding process right now. It might be this year. If you go to the next slide, you can see on the left is the dilapidated building. I'm on slide 14 if you're looking on. That building's over 50 years old. And here's the floor plan of also 1,800 square foot. It's kind of like a standard that we use. The floor plan shows, the corridor, the pilot lounge area, restrooms. There's a flight planning station. In this diagram, the pink area would be leased potentially for a private airport manager or an FBO facility. And that's about it. That's pretty much what you'd also be looking at Middlebury if it goes forward. And
are these amenities just provided to any pilot using the Middlebury Airport?
Any pilot, visitors or based aircraft.
Okay.
Most of the users right now, their hangars don't have restroom facilities, or they're just a garage storage.
Sure.
Most of them.
Yeah.
And then other tenants park out on the apron. They tie down on the apron. They don't have any facilities to use, and this would provide that service. It'd also be a public building. It can be used for schools or education, flight training, flight planning, any of those potential functions. If you're at one of the other state airports, take a look at their little terminal building. You'll see what we're talking about. Okay, this is the same rendering from a different angle. One of the things we're suggesting here is to make tie-down anchors on the existing apron that's there now. Most of the apron's already in place. It doesn't have tie-down anchors, and you'll see a lot of aircraft sometimes parked in the grass or sometimes up against a hangar. This just provides more flexibility. As part of this building, we're recommending to put down 6 tie-down anchors to keep airplanes all lined up and secure. I do list a few other things. So I talked about the minor apron expansion, resurfacing some of the existing paving, that's just rehab, the tie-downs. Oh, and one of the goals of the state is also to extend 3-phase power from State 116. It doesn't have it now at the airport, and they do want to add electrical charging at the airport for vehicles and ultimately for aircraft. So the 3-phase power would be necessary. We put it in this project as a potential way to get the funding together. Instead of doing just a project for power extension, the utility companies, they won't do that for you because it's a state facility. The state has to put the money up for that. Okay, so that's the proposed action. As I said, we're doing the environmental review now. The next slide just lists FAA's environmental categories. Different federal agencies group these categories in different ways. We're going through all of them. One thing I've noticed with what our environmental specialists are doing now is they don't see a lot of potential impact, at least for ecological or ground disturbance or water quality. It's a pretty small project, and it's pretty much in an area that's been 100% previously disturbed by existing development. So I don't think we're going to have any showstoppers when the environmental assessment comes out. I know there might be a lot of public interest because it is an airport improvement, but from an ecological standpoint, we don't see any big problems, at least not yet. So that's the environmental review. Almost done here. I have a schedule. I'm not going to read through the schedule either, but we're in February 2025 in the upper middle at the Selectboard meeting. We've defined the project. So through the rest of the spring coming up, we're going to finish the environmental analysis, compile it into a report, and get it available for public review. Once we do that, we'll have the hearing also in the summer, July, and we hope by August to be wrapping up the environmental study. As I suggested, this is a prerequisite to going to the development phase, so the design has not started. If the design is funded and it goes forward, all the permitting will come at that process. Act 250 will be required for this, all before construction starts. We don't have an exact timeline because the funding for the construction is not in place. So we're talking anywhere between maybe the design could start late this year, but certainly a goal of building this small facility in 26 or 27 is a goal. No guarantees though.
What's
Well,
the estimated cost?
The public hearing would be before you entered the design phase?
Has to be, yes.
Yes.
What, we release the draft, and we don't release the draft until the FAA and V-Trans both sign off on the draft.
Okay.
And then the draft comes out, that starts the public process. There's a 30-day review period. We're gonna make it more than 30 days. We'll get the document online, we'll advertise the public hearing. We'll ask the town to post the public hearing, and the information will have places for sending comments and for electronically and written comments. All that goes into the review process before the EA is finalized. If this was a big project, you know, it could take well over a year to go through the public process. A small project, you know, it's a couple of months to get it through. Only after that, only if the FAA approves the EA, can V-Trans seek the funding for the design.
Okay.
What is the best rough cost if you're talking?
You know, I know the one in similar size at Northeast Kingdom in Newport was designed and went out to bid, and I think the engineer's estimate was under $1 million, but all soup to nuts, the construction bid was over $1 million for a small building like this. It's
$4+ per square foot.
It's since COVID, prices seem to have doubled for vertical construction. In vertical, this is one story.
Right.
Unlike, you know, it's no bigger than an average house, but you have to have all the federal processes and prevailing wages, and I don't know why it gets so costly, but the public bids were more than we expected on that building in Newport.
Huh.
The eligibility is, you know, 90% eligible for federal funding, and it could even be higher depending on the funding situation. I'm very cautious when I talk about funding now. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, last but not least, I want to provide everyone with we'll take comments right now, even before the process goes public. Well, this is public, but it's not the formal release yet. John Nummy at V-Trans is the project manager, and I've listed my name and our environmental specialist project manager's name there. If you want to send emails, we're happy to take any comments or questions at this early stage of the game.
Ross?
Yeah, I was wondering if you know what the state usually uses as an energy source for space heating and hot water in their various terminals or administrative buildings throughout the state, and then would they use the same energy source for this one?
It's most likely going to be propane. I don't know off the top of my head if there is any natural gas or other sources other than power along Airport Road. But
would they consider pumps, because that might be better than propane or natural gas in terms of the environment and long term in terms of cost?
I think all of that will be considered, and that will come up during the design process at the exact stage. I go to Brian, and Brian goes to.
Hi, Richard McGurk. I'm sure you've done a very careful traffic study. How many people will be using it?
Interestingly enough, this building and all the GA airports, it's not based, the need is not based on the activity level. And it's a basic facility that the state's goal is to have a small terminal or a small admin building at all the airports. And I don't think it's gonna be a tremendous amount of traffic. It's gonna be, you see the users there. Excuse me?
Why do it? What's the underlying reasoning for doing it if you don't have a count of the number of people that are likely to be actually using it?
Just that's the answer I have, is that all the state airports, they wanna have a public facility for flight planning, for restroom use. They would consider it safety as well, to have a sheltered area to serve the users of the airport.
Will the environmental analysis be looking at the electrical right of way from Route 116?
It will during the permitting process. It doesn't.
So but the environmental analysis that will be approved by V-Trans and FAA will not?
There'll be an assumption that the existing power poles will be used to support the existing power.
Is that included in the?
I'll check on that because it's about, all the questions are valid, and I'll try to get you a more specific answer.
Okay, thank you.
Just a couple of points. The governor's budget put in about a $1.5 million cost for this project. So that's the number I see, of which about 150,000 is the environmental assessment. Is the environmental assessment piece, is that subject to FAA grants as well? Or just so it is.
Andy, they're having trouble picking you up.
Come up just so the MCT folks can hear the questions. If you could just grab one of the seats, that way the folks at home can hear the questions.
Do I want to repeat it then?
Yes, please.
If you can,
Okay.
yeah.
Andy Sambrook at Airport Road. So the governor budget suggested that the total cost for this project is about 1.5 million, of which 150 is the environmental assessment. The question I asked was, is the environmental assessment piece, the current cost, is that also subject to FAA grant?
Yes.
So they have a grant for that already to do that.
I'm certain they have a grant for the environmental study, and the federal participation is at minimum 90%. It could be higher than that.
Got it.
I didn't bring budget numbers with me, but I do know they have, the grant is in place. I was told the grant's in place for the environmental study.
For the environment. And when does are they applying for the grant now? Is it in this current fiscal year that they will get the grant? They'll know whether they've got the money to build this.
We don't know that yet. It won't be until if and when the environmental study is approved by the FAA. Only then can they apply for federal funding for the next phase. Was that the question? So
yes,
they don't have federal grants beyond the environmental.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions in the audience or from the board?
All right, well,
really
John,
appreciate you coming in and walking us through the what the process looks like. And I know it's not a requirement, but you know, we have, as you can tell, we're very cautious about making sure that the environment, that the neighborhood is aware of what's going on, and you know, Michelle has been very good to support us on that, and so thanks for coming.
Yeah, no, you're welcome for V-Trans.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
David, did you want to go into the town?
Yeah, with an understanding that we just got the feedback this afternoon from town council, so I didn't want to throw that into the last minute. So it's, although they're not significant changes, you might want to wait till the next meeting so you can see those final versions. They don't significantly change what we're proposing.
But there are changes?
Yes, from the last meeting. So if it's all right, I'll just briefly explain what we've changed, and maybe, again, we'll get your feedback of whether that moved in the right direction for you.
Okay.
We presented last time to the select board a policy recommendation relating to rules for encampments on town public property. Last time you saw a policy draft that essentially had two key components. One was it listing areas where encampments simply would not be allowed on public property. The other listed areas where there may not be an outright restriction, but the factors of each particular case would dictate whether the encampment will be allowed to stay. The feedback that we received from the select board, as you remember, was let's see if we can make it somewhat less absolutely restrictive. I think the impression that we got was if we can lean a little more on the facts of the situation rather than simply saying a ban. For example, town forests, I think there was a thought that might be a little too far. So in the spirit of that, you have before you an updated draft, and and the highlighted sections are really the key parts at the end on the last page. You can see that the section 1, for example, takes out the language about town forests. It takes out the language that simply says by virtue of being near infrastructure, you can't camp. And instead, you'll see new language in section 2. Heather, you made the point about let's reference the fact that if there's a interference with municipal operations, that's something to act upon rather than just being near a pump station, right? Are you interfering with the property, or are you interfering with the public's or the town's use of the property for operations? We added language in relating to a pattern of criminal activity at a site. So these would be factors the town manager would consider when deciding whether an intervention or a removal of an encampment is necessary. So it's a big picture. It is a shift towards more discretion to the town manager based on additional listed factors, and it shrinks somewhat the list of places that would just simply not be allowed. That's the big picture description of it. And town council's comments, obviously we'll send those out for the next meeting, but they didn't substantively change what we're proposing here.
I think it's good.
I think it followed the spirit of what we asked for.
Yep. I do think it, I hope that it's kind of a living document, and as you use it in experience, you know, going through the process, that you make adjustments accordingly, but I think it's a pretty good place to start.
And we've shared it with the chief, the newest version. Heidi and Susan have gotten it as well, so they'll come to the next meeting if anybody's got questions for them, because they're really the folks on the ground. Great, this thing.
And are they supportive?
Yeah, the chief was. Heidi's on vacation, so I'll hear back from her when I hear back, but I doubt she'll change.
It would be nice to hear from her before we enact the policy.
She was in favor of the more restrictive policy.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
I think this, I would just say kudos, because I think you took maybe a not very clear conversation at our last meeting, and I think you did a great job incorporating what we were trying to, I think, in my opinion.
I agree.
So thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. All right, so we'll bring it to the 11th for review and approval, hopefully.
Sounds good. I'll vote, I don't know what the right way.
Send your vote in ahead?
Yeah, I'm gonna send my vote in ahead right now.
Don't know if it works like that.
I'll second her virtual vote. Yeah, your last motion was.
Yeah.
It's after town meeting, so she wants to be here, Fred. Dan and Richard. Can we screen share their presentation again?
Hello again. I'm Dan Rafferty, member of the Energy Committee. This is our 4th annual update, so it's usually in the dead of winter for some reason, but Richard was, a strong advocate in the development of the resolution that we can look at in a moment, and which specified an annual report. And I jumped in to help him because it was really quite a load that he took on each year. And so now he's making room for me to be the speaker to the data. So I do have a slide presentation that will review the report, but the report itself is in your packet and was also part of what the Energy Committee submitted for the annual town letter. So
give us a second. It's not
okay.
appearing on the screen, so we're going to try to do this the old-fashioned way. There we go. And we're gonna share this with the folks at home. Okay,
Thanks.
now we're good.
You can advance.
Let's try again. There we go.
Yeah, so for context, what I'm calling a resolution related to a vote taken about 4 years ago to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions due to town operations by 80% from a baseline level of the fiscal year 2019. We set a goal to do that by the end of the year 2030. So it was not a sort of a cumulative look, but more just an end point where we're trying to get to. And as a result, we also committed to provide you with an annual accounting. So just to review, you can go ahead. Our methodology on this, we tie this to the fiscal years, so we are covering purchases that happen between July 1st, 2023 and June 30th, 2024. So starting to feel like ancient history, but that includes those big storms that were in July and of course early August of 2023. So we use Deb Stevens provides us with spreadsheets that really accumulate all the purchases made to the various fuel vendors, times that vehicles fill up at tanks and use a purchase card. We also get just a kind of large quantity purchase to the tank at the Public Works. We get the amount of gallons bought from Champlain Valley Fuels, and then we get a huge spreadsheet of Green Mountain Power bills and some statements for the net meter credits applied from New Haven and Bristol. So we sift all that together. Richard has come up with a sort of coefficient for each fuel type, and that's how we arrive at these numbers. So these are really not, these are not upstreams, these are not estimates, they're really tied to the actual purchases by the town of energy. So pretty specific. You can go ahead. So kind of headline view here is that for the fiscal year 2024, we saw an increase over the previous year. The previous year, as you can see, was the lowest to date from the baseline in the fiscal year 2019. As I'll get to, and you maybe saw if you read it yourself, we largely connect a lot of this increase to a lot of extra diesel was bought in that year. There was a lot, I think, either driving at the wastewater treatment plant or the main pump station, I'm not sure which. There were like daily deliveries going on in that August time after that storm. And then we sort of speculate that there was a lot of additional traffic for when the water disruptions and pipe blowouts were happening that January of 2024 that may have increased the Department of Public Works, just miles traveled and fuel used. So yes, an increase. The kind of notable decrease that you see starting in 2019, and this has been reviewed before, but I'll say it again. The drop between 2019 and 2021, which was so significant, is not necessarily connected to a drop in energy use per se. It was really that the Green Mountain Power electricity mix was significantly decarbonized over that period. So that accounts for the great majority of the drop and progress to date. And then as you can see, we're sort of going up in 2024, moving away from our target. You can go ahead. So we do summarize the greenhouse gases by department. The Public Works, as you can see, is the largest. This building is a nice little 0%, so nice to see that. And the police vehicles are in, I guess, third place, so to speak, and the sewer, or the wastewater treatment. Now that's really all the system. It's both the plant and the pump stations. Is a little bit behind Public Works. there's a pie chart in the report that's not in this slide deck that would show that actually the sewer department is one of the largest energy users in the town. But it's interesting to note that it's drops down when you look at it from a greenhouse gas emission standpoint, and that's because a great chunk of the consumption at the treatment plant is electricity. So I made this comment last Thursday to you all, but about how then, I would like to see that the electricity continues to power the upgraded plant as much as possible. Okay. So headwinds kind of made 2024 move away from the target, where the flooding I talked about in that summer of 23, the water main breaks, vehicle miles, I kind of went over this already, and then the generators that had to temporarily run a lot of the pump stations. We have no real reason to think, the tracking over the years, we don't do necessarily how many cold days were in that winter or another. There's a kind of variance, like this is a colder winter than last winter was. So I don't have that figured in as far as if that's an explainer, but it seems like because diesel was the biggest increase year over year, that it really was tied to that work going on at the pumps and public works. Summarizing that, you can see the year over year, the biggest jump actually in diesel again. So just kind of making that point. Again, big steep up. Interesting in that in 2023, there actually was a pretty significant decrease in the diesel used at public works. I didn't really get from Bill Kernan why that may be, or I guess there's, I wish I had a reason for that dip that you see in the previous year. But as you can see, the high point that it gets to in 2024 is still over that sort of trend line that preceded it. These are the arrow, the terminus of the arrow would be the 80% reduction. So you have fuel oil and propane are used for the thermal needs of the buildings. What we call methane gas here is also used for thermal purposes. So the previous chart was really vehicles, whereas these are the heating needs of the building. So we are not showing up with specific recommendations, like you should do this to this building or buy this vehicle. That's not the point of this evening. We are trying to, however, go over what we think are the important strategies, with the hope that you and department heads kind of bear that in mind as you make the decisions throughout the year. I've thought about the timing of this report. It is tied to the fiscal year. So as I look through how the budgeting process goes and how much kicks in October, I really actually hope to be here in about 9 months to present next year's report. I'd like to move this up to September so that you could have this information available as you make those key decisions in that budgeting time, because it kind of feels like showing up now, that moment's passed, and then by the time we get to the fall, maybe we're not having this front of mind. So, I've thought about that and the timing, and I think it could help if this was back in front of you in September, right at that moment where some of those decisions are about to, be debated. So, strategy-wise, we talked about Green Mountain Power and what it's done. The renewable energy standards in the news right now, but Green Mountain Power is trending towards continuing to decarbonize its electricity. How it does that, and they have a target of really getting it, to near zero by 2030. But like I said, there's some legislation pending that's trying to almost challenge some of that. So we'll see. But I think in general, you know, Green Mountain Power is a good partner for these efforts because of what they're doing. So as a strategy, again, we're talking about electrifying everything. And the report makes it clear we're aware that technology that supports electrifying HVAC systems is currently ahead of where it is for, say, heavy equipment, right? So, you know, we're not coming in here just pie in the sky around what's possible, but we also think, you know, trends would support that vehicles could, every year is getting a little better in terms of the options. But in the near term, it's the HVAC that, you know, serves as a good target. So electrifying everything for HVAC, vehicles, and remembering to look at our replacement schedule. You know, the rec center was an interesting example that happened this last year, where they came forward with, I think, a desire for cooling needs in the gym space, right? And then also a device that was breaking down. And Jamie Hand from our committee, I think, lent some expertise or advice around a heat pump possibility for that roof. Fred let me know last week that he was looking a little closer, and there is a little, like, for its winter needs, there's a little bit of a propane backup, so it's not purely electric, but it's an improvement over the completely fossil fuel system that was in place before. I do summarize the energy consumption in this report, so now that it's doing cooling, you know, I guess there's possible that there's actual increase in the energy use, right? Because it didn't used to serve any kind of function there. But we'll have that visible probably in next year's report. And then of course efficiency still helps and matters. You can go ahead. So I did want to go over, there's a decent bit that's happened in the last year that again, hopefully shows up, you know, in a more positive trend in next year's report. So the teen center was weatherized, and that had been a project that I think previously had been hard to find a contractor for. At one point it had gone out with an RFP, you guys know all this. So an RFP that didn't get a sufficient response, but I think it was pulled off like last March. So this would be the winter we're in, is the first winter that where they'd be enjoying some of the benefits of that weatherization. The rec center I just talked about. We appreciate that Emily's willing to drive around in her little Chevy Bolt. And, it always looks so nice, I think, parked along Route 7 there. So it's a good public messaging, in my opinion.
DPW and water, it's actually wastewater that has the other one.
That's, thank you, okay, yep. And we're aware of how, you know, the library was holding that furnace together with chewing gum and rubber bands, I think. And so the new system, as we know, is going to be a ground source heat pump, geothermal. And again, that when we know, I'll work some, again, for next year's report too, there probably will be increased energy use in that building, and I should be able to get some of those numbers because it's a bigger footprint to the building, right? So, you know, that's a change that will happen, but it was built in the way that best meets the strategies we're recommending, which is electrifying it. And then the police station had some work on a conference room. I think a few years ago. There's also just a kind of standing engineer's report at some point from the last few years about how it could be improved. Okay. So, bottom line is that, you know, we need to coordinate these efforts to reach the target. It's a lonely little orange bar out there on the far right with a bunch of question marks in between here and there. But, you know, just to review, the electrification of HVAC is current technology and would help us, and ties into some work already underway in terms of replacement schedule that you already have. Like these are projects you're gonna undertake anyways.
Dan, before we talk about the diesel 800-pound gorilla in the room, When Zeke Davidson was speaking at the college about housing in the fall, he mentioned that the surprisingly high repair costs for residential heat pumps had pushed up their cost to deliver units of rental housing in Vermont beyond what they had anticipated as part of his presentation. And I was wondering if the committee has heard anything about this or is aware of the long-term costs for heat pumps.
We have not heard about that. It's always an interesting kind of moment where we look at the replacement technology and that it involves something, but we always have to remember, like I was just talking about the furnace across the way, it's not like the other equipment gets by without with no cost or maintenance or upgrade, right? So
no, but it was very surprising. Like it was a factor in housing costs that came up, like not a little maintenance thing. Like it was a major driver because he's the largest owner of rental properties, I think, in the state. Anyway, I was just that might be an interesting conversation to have.
This building has one since opened in 2016. I'm not aware that there's been a significant repair needed.
I hear two different things though. Residential heat
That's
pumps.
correct.
This is definitely a commercial heat pump unit.
Right.
So maybe it's the
So again, and we're talking about town operations, so I guess we would categorize those as commercial units.
Oh, for sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
If you own 200 apartment units and each one has a heat pump, you're in a different situation than a homeowner who owns one heat pump or 2 or 3 heat pumps in terms of failure rates.
Oh, sure.
And so if you own 200 of something, you can expect some failures, even though the failures are rare.
Sure.
Okay, I mean, I know you know that, but
it was surprising for someone who owns hundreds of units how expensive the ongoing cost of heat pumps were. That was just a thing I wanted to bring to the Energy Committee from the residential housing sector. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, and I should have invited it right from the top too. Like, you know, this is largely an informational delivery that I'm giving. It's it's an accounting and a quantity report, but I want it to be useful. So I'm happy to hear how the report can be enhanced, or if you want modeling, if you want estimates of what's that called, lifetime operational cost, or if those are the things that you want to see comparisons of, like, we would benefit from knowing that because you're the decision makers here. So
just curious what you're seeing for it almost feels like the electrification of some of our machinery and vehicles is starting to already kind of go over the hump, and the acceptance of a lot of it is not what you had predicted and hoped as they look at alternative fuels. The manufacturers that I work with, we're trying to help Shelburne Farms get to a position where they're using alternative natural fuels and renewable sources, and a lot of that equipment's just not available even at that small level, just to pull people carts and small equipment. So I'm just curious, what's the fuel that's going to help us actually achieve this goal? I don't think electrification is going to do it. I really don't.
Well, it's interesting. The Energy Committee had a report and a meeting with Green Mountain Power's innovation program at their last meeting, and among the many incentives that GMP offers, Dan Mackey, who's the head of this program, noted that heat pumps are now capable of producing 170-degree water. So all those houses that use heating fuel and want to continue to use their hydronic radiator system in the house, they could potentially have a heat pump to replace their fuel oil boiler. Now think of how many houses and buildings out there are heated with fuel oil. That's a lot of diesel use.
Yeah, well, I'm talking townships, commercial type equipment.
So,
How do we
our-
get commercial equipment so that it's renewable?
Our global recommendation is to choose electric wherever it is, every time you're buying new equipment, if it's feasible, replace a fossil fuel device with an electric device. I mean, that's the general algorithm, okay? And the details are gonna be different now than they were 5 years ago, and they'll be different 5 years from now than they are now. And we have plenty of opportunities to replace fuel oil and propane with electricity in heating buildings. We have opportunities to replace light vehicles, light pickup trucks and sedans with electric models. You know, there are some of the transitions that we would like to make are going to be slower than others, but we can move ahead with the ones that we can move ahead with now and not be distracted by the ones that are not feasible yet.
And I'm not arguing with you on that. My question, you're still not answering my question, because we're trying to do that like what we did at the town gymnasium, and those are the easier ones because there are solutions out there. I mean, you read a lot about it. I don't have the time to do that. I'm trying to bring in even just smaller electric tractors, and we have a compressed natural gas tractor on the lot if you wanted to see what's out there, and that's a over 100 horsepower tractor. We can't, we're trying to legislate to go to over the road electric trucks, and the manufacturers aren't even accepting it because the consumers aren't accepting it. It's just not there. What technology is coming down the road? Electricity is not going to do it, I don't think.
We're looking at what's coming down the road is lighter batteries, higher capacity batteries. That's an incremental improvement in the existing technology. Is for lighter, longer range batteries.
Are they safer? I mean, you look at all the contamination from the burned electric cars out in California. I just don't think the battery is the solution. I mean, don't they have better fuels other than?
You have at least as much expertise as anybody around the table does, Brian. Okay, so
you guys are the energy committee. I'm looking for you to bring. We had this mandate to electrify our vehicles. What is there?
So we should electrify the ones we can. We should defer purchases if we can. If there's stuff coming down the pike that says, if we keep this vehicle on the road another 2 years, we can replace it with an electric vehicle. We need to consider those possibilities. Our proposed goal is to get to an 80% reduction. It's not to 100% reduction. We know we're not going to get to 100%.
But we know from a slide that we saw last year or the year before that just our diesel use for large vehicles exceeds the target for 2030.
And that's we showed you a slide this evening that shows that of the different categories of fuel, the one that's really up for us is diesel, and that's because this last year and a half has been a year from hell for people running public works department.
Yeah, a lot of generator use,
that's we talked about those being headwinds.
Yeah.
Hopefully that year from hell is over.
Have we another one?
We hope we don't have another one. In any case, the replacement of the fossil fuel heating system at the rec center with heat pumps and the building of a new library building that is all electric are both tremendous steps forward. Tremendous. And that will show up in the summary data when we show it to you next September or October. Mm-hmm. It's great stuff. It's very positive. We should pat ourselves on the back for it.
What do you think is-
I'll try to answer
what-
your question too.
yeah.
The vehicle is not my area of expertise, but I know there's a lot of hope on hydrogen down the line.
JCB is a hydrogen.
You know, that there, but again, that's probably in the neighborhood of the 2030s. So like, just to take a guess, like that's not next
Yeah.
year. So, you know, this is always gonna go in an iterative way. And near term, it's the HVAC that, it's not just nothing, right, that we did, like the rec center and then that's it. Like, there's other.
But the heavy transportation
There's other
is-
near term, the heavy transportation.
Yeah.
And you know, I think a lot about how, I am not gonna like hitch my recommendation and watch some electric powered snowplow sit on you know, like obviously snowstorms go for 36 hours of straight use. Like, it's just not realistic to recommend that type of equipment for electricity. But, you know, so hopefully technology's on our side in this way. But there are many steps to take as the fuels get worked out. I guess with vehicles, you also have a use of life of, you know, less than say the heating infrastructure of a building. So if you're suggesting that we look at, like, you know, the natural gas powered heavy equipment and how to have that be different, like we could do that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not necessarily suggesting that we should look at that. I'm just saying, I don't think we have the solution to get to our goal in 2030 until we can solve the heavy equipment aspect, because that is so energy hungry, that equipment, to get the job done. And we're not gonna be able to do it with electric solution. It's not gonna be there. And it's not even that great. I mean, those batteries have huge issues, and you know, potential issues that are just as bad as the issue of the fuel. So I'm not so sure that that's something that I wonder if we should relook our goal and say, these are the things that we have solutions for. By eliminating those, where do we actually get to?
I guess I wouldn't phrase that as change the goal so much as do the modeling of where we actually can get
Maybe
to.
if nobody has a solution for a way to reduce our utilization of diesel in the heavy powered equipment.
Right. Yeah, when you're looking at it from 11 years out, there's a lot more opportunities for innovations and advancements than there is when you're looking from 5 years out. Yeah.
Ross?
There are people working on this. For example, Edison Motors up in Canada is actually building plows, large 18-wheeler rigs, big trucks, heavy equipment running on electric. I actually contacted them to get more information for the Energy Committee, and they're sold out. They're one of the few that are really making some gains on this, but there's so much demand, you gotta be like right in the front of the line right now, because it's, you know, it's a process. So I think it's coming. It's probably gonna take, you know, 5, maybe 10 years, but I think you might be surprised. There are people working on it, it's being done today, and it's coming.
It'd be nice if they could get our batteries so they're not so polluting, and I mean, there's as many bad things with our existing electrification as there is with the diesel, as I watch it from an equipment standpoint, heavy equipment standpoint, and even just working on it. I mean, you know, it's can be deadly.
But the fossil fuel and creation of greenhouse gases threatens life on the planet and everything, whereas the energy, the batteries with the metals that have to be mined and things, yes, they can be damaging, but they're not as bad, so they're a step in the right direction. The ultimate thing is we've got to stop being such a heavily consumption society and using so much, and start thinking of ways, acting like nature does, where we don't produce waste and we, you know, very efficient in everything we do. We're too much about money, and we don't get what's best for society. We get what people can make money doing, and that is the heart of the problem.
Can I just add one thing? It's become, the name of our committee, the Energy Committee, is probably outdated. We really should be the Climate Change Committee, or the Carbon Dioxide Equivalent Committee, or some other name. It's really, it's become shorthand to say, oh, you know, the way to save carbon dioxide emissions is to reduce energy use. That's not right. The way to reduce carbon dioxide emissions is to stop burning fossil fuels. Okay, that's how you stop CO2 emissions. You stop burning fossil fuels. And we actually want to use more electricity for heat and for vehicles, and we want to use less fossil fuel. I realize this sounds like it's excessively elementary, but I know I fall into the habit of talking about energy use when I really mean fossil fuel use. And we just need to keep real clear that energy use is not the enemy. Fossil fuel use is the enemy.
Yeah.
Questions of the board?
Is this your last slide, or is there further to go?
That, we had a few tacked on that,
Okay.
but yeah, that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you put up the resolution again?
Yeah,
There it is, okay. You know, when we asked you all when we presented this to the then members of the select board, of whom I think maybe 2 or 3 are present tonight, we originally had asked for an 8-year time frame, which would have ended up in
27 probably.
2027, 28, and you all said, no, that's really too ambitious, let's make it a 10-year time frame. So we did that. I kind of liked the idea of having a goal in 2027, 28, because that's when I'm turning 80 years old, and I thought I have a good chance of living to 80, but I don't know how much beyond 80 I will live. And so I really wanted this to be done in my lifetime, so I could see what we'd done and what we'd accomplished, taking a bit of a long view. And I think it's quite feasible that, I take Brian's skepticism to heart. I understand what you're saying, but I think, we have another 5 years, and I don't think it's impossible that we will meet an 80% reduction in 5 years. In 5 years from now, we got a freebie at the start because Green Mountain Power cleaned up their electricity. So that big fall in the first 2 years.
Well, it looked like we took some great acts, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they reflected no effort on our part. It was Green Mountain Power and the state legislature that did that for us. But we, as we convert the library to electric fuel, as we convert the rec center to electric fuel, I think we'll make some really significant impact. And I think when we come to see you next year, you'll see a definite decline in the most recent year of emissions.
Certainly hope so.
And I do, it's been worth the effort, even if we don't hit that goal, Richard. And so I'm still a skeptic. I was when we voted on it, but I said we might as well start with a goal. And I think your efforts have paid off, as you can see. So thanks for being the constant voice in our ear.
Mark, not to take up too much more of the board's time, would you bring up one of those pictures I sent in earlier today, please? So one thing that comes up in infrastructure committee and in terms of diesel fuel is a discussion around biofuel, biodiesel.
Mm-hmm.
And we, my husband's truck experienced gel up this winter from what biodiesel does in a diesel engine in cold climates. And there's a couple of pictures that I sent in today because I wanted you guys to see what this means, and you've probably experienced this multiple times.
We won't use biodiesel.
What did you just say?
I said
Say it out loud.
I said, we won't use biodiesel, and I was opposed to the town
So-
garage using it because we have to use them
So
in the
this,
coldest of weather.
this situation right here, you go to, so when you go buy commercial diesel in a place you don't know, and lots of times the diesel is cut with biodiesel, and you don't know. And then what you're running in your diesel truck will do this, and essentially the biodiesel and will solidify, create like jello on your filter, and it prevents your vehicle from getting fuel and stops. And it takes a tremendous amount of time and effort to clean it out and repair it and get it back on the road. And I hear often, one solution to diesel is biodiesel. I don't think in our climate that it is a viable solution for this very reason. And I just wanted to share that with the board and with the infrastructure committee, so that when you hear more biodiesel, it is not always a viable solution. So,
And Heather, this is diesel that you purchased
commercially,
not intentionally getting.
Yeah, so like just pulling up to a pump somewhere and
Yep.
filling up, and you don't know what you're getting. You don't know what it's cut, versus purchasing from a dealer where you know what you're getting. So.
Is there a conditioner for diesel fuel?
There is a conditioner, but you start, it's expensive, and why condition if you don't have to condition? So
Well, apparently you have
you have to if
I
you're
don't
gonna
think
use that.
it doesn't solve the problem.
But
though.
the other thing is it's not as good for the engine. It doesn't have the same properties, and it doesn't provide the lubrication for the cylinder walls. Yes.
You might want to look into that, because I use biodiesel. You do have to use an anti-gel agent, or else, absolutely right, it will gel up in cold weather, just like regular diesel will. Regular diesel has to be cut with anti-gelling. Usually they use kerosene or something, and if they don't get it right, or it gets too cold too quick, it gels up too. You have to use an anti-gelling agent, whether it's diesel or biodiesel. It's not a problem with it, and it actually works better in engines from what I've been reading, because the vegetable oil is actually a better lubricant than diesel fuel.
Can you send me your articles on that? Because their manufacturers will not allow it under warranty because of its lack of lubricity or whatever. So you're in direct opposition to what they give us for stuff. So I'd love to throw it at them, because they'll deny a failed engine if they do a test.
I know, yeah. Warranties won't be covered.
One thing we have not asked DPW for is the specific, I assume that someone there logs which vehicle they're filling up, off the tank, because there is a biodiesel tank at DPW now, and it's been filled, started with B5 3 winters ago, and it's had B20 since. So it's been there, it's been in machines. I don't know specifically how much, or which vehicles. They definitely know not to put it in vehicles under warranty. That was gone over right when it started, but we'd be on our 4th winter now where it's in the mix in these vehicles. So I haven't personally heard about the gelling. I also don't know, if it's just a couple machines that have gotten all the consumption, or if it's spread out. But it has been used, for the last, I think the first delivery of B5 was winter of 21.
It'd be good data to have.
What's that?
It would be good data to have.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm assuming someone writes it down when they fill up a tank on the specific vehicle. But
I think they do.
That would be useful. Obviously, it's not as much as the regular diesel getting put there.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for listening.
Thanks very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, number 10 is if you go to the town manager's report, the presenters list, if you could pull that up. I just want to walk through what town meeting looks like. So, we'll start, Susan, we'll start with introducing, welcoming everybody, go through admitting the staff and other non-residents to the meeting. Izzy would come up and do the dedication of the town report, along with thank yous and the Bob Collins Award. The service thank yous with a number of retirees will be recognized. And then Mark would do the town budget presentation, and that's really the biggest part of it, but we will all be there prepared to help with explanation, as will our treasurer Nick, and so everybody should be there prepared to answer any questions on that. On the Cross Street Bridge Fund, I think David has sent everybody some brief notes on kind of your area.
Yep.
And so a couple of the next ones are relatively brief explanations to get the Cross Street Bridge Fund transfer approval for the dollars above and beyond the Cross Street maintenance. Well, not maintenance, the payment
service. Yeah.
Then the collection of tax schedule.
I'm not sure if I can handle that.
Yeah.
That's a pretty complex issue. I got
You
2
know,
days to remember.
we actually had, you know, there's going to be citizens that want to break it up in 3,
Yeah.
so you
Oh,
be
yeah, no, I'm
prepared on
No,
that.
I got 22 seconds. If no questions, I'm done.
My first year, that was my topic, and there was heated discussion because I think we went from 3 to 2. Yeah.
I think
After
that,
5
I
years,
think,
I'll be okay.
I think the key to that discussion is reminding folks that they have the ability to set up a personalized payment plan.
Got it. Yep.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
and they just need to reach out to the treasurer. If they want 10 payments, they could do it.
Thanks for all the help. I needed all that.
Local option tax is going to be very similar to the collection of taxes and Cross Street Bridge Fund transfer, and I'll take that. And then comes the big topic, and that's it'll be probably very similar and maybe more controversial than the budget, and that's the wastewater treatment plant. And Heather, you're very familiar with it. This is your swan song, and so but you're gonna have Emily and.
So I've already talked a little bit with Emily and Jeremy and a little bit about, so I guess some of what I was thinking, I wanted to know how much time I had.
As much time as it takes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we want to show, were we planning to show the video, the 7-minute roughly 7-minute video? Can we show?
Do we
the
have
video?
a?
You know, I think it would
Do
be
we have
good if we
a
have
screen
the
for
AV.
it?
Well, we're gonna have a screen, but do we have is it on the computer? Because we're gonna be projecting.
Yeah, it's on, yeah.
We should
it's-
be able
yeah.
And our slides are gonna be
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
that would be good.
So,
Can Kurt pick up the audio? Yeah. Okay.
okay, so I had talked with Emily and Jeremy a little bit about coordinating how that presentation goes. So, is that okay with everyone? Is it anyone have in
I mean,
however long it
frankly,
takes?
in a
I mean,
couple
I'm not gonna spend 2 hours on it, but
No, but in a
I
couple
didn't know
hour
if there
town
was
meeting,
like
this is a $50 million project. It's
Right.
our
Yeah.
single largest thing we're talking about. To spend 7 minutes giving them a really quality.
well, that's just the
visual.
video.
What's
Yeah.
that?
That's just the
No,
video.
no,
Right.
but,
Yeah.
but to add that
Yeah.
to it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally reasonable.
So I just wanted to make sure I was okay in going in the direction I was thinking and coordinating with Emily and Jeremy and on how the presentation would go and getting together with them and covering, you know, getting a little more organized on how we're gonna cover it.
Yeah. and
Because Jeremy speaks much better about it
does, but-
than I do.
Yep,
So.
but I think the point person ought to be you and
Yes.
Emily, okay, and with Jeremy as backup. So that, because we want to keep on the high top lights of the
Yep.
topics, and if we get too much into the weeds, I think we'll lose people.
Yep, okay. All right, that's what I was looking for, just some guidance on time and so.
Andy, you
We'll have to
understand your
admit-
challenge?
I accept it.
We'll have to make sure we admit Emily as a non-resident
Yep.
speaker.
Yep,
Is
they're-
she on the list?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
all, a number now, they're all listed.
And Fred?
Yep,
Adams
I got
Acres
the
still on?
talking points, and we just need the visual of where this is, you know, the air photo thing with the major property owners, Keystone Orders, and labeling Boardman Street watershed. And, you know, this is one of the last things on town meeting, so people are gonna be, you know, going out the doors, clamoring, like, wrap it up.
Yeah.
At that point in the town meeting typically.
But he has 15 pages here.
I didn't, not, this is what David sent me.
Sorry, Fred.
And even this is more detailed, I kind of, you know, part of it. But, obviously I'm gonna defer to Emily on the details of the grant matching, of this, and why constructing wetland cost $1 million, and how much the town's minimal share of this, which is 15% of the impervious area, is gonna result in that our local piece of that is already in the capital budget. So this is not expected to increase taxes. This is just a town managing a project like the wastewater plant, having to bond for the whole thing to demonstrate support. But there's other users that make it all money come together. How much time do you think it? 3 minutes?
Sounds right.
Yeah, three, no more than 5.
3 to 5, all right. I'll rehearse it.
And
I can give you 5 seconds.
have you got all the slides put together?
Yeah, we have the PowerPoint, we'll add what he just mentioned, but aside from that, that's all done. Emily and Nick have,
Could I just
yeah, I'll
take a
send it to
view
you.
of the?
Yeah, I can send it to all of you if you
Yeah,
want.
I think everybody just,
Yeah.
so we got it ahead of time, that'd be great.
We get Drew to do like a 7-minute video of the Rogers Road pump station, so that.
Okay,
Just explain why it costs 2 million.
check warrants.
Oh, I did them. That's me. Hey. I reviewed expenditures and moved to approve total expenditures in the amount of $559,293.82, consisting of $422,146.72 for accounts payable and $137,147.10 for payroll for the period of February 12th through February 25th of the year 2025.
Second.
I would also like to mention that I asked a number of staff people today what the purpose of this exercise was.
What?
What the purpose of the exercise of reviewing the individual, every invoice was.
That's just to comply with state law that requires the select board approve the check warrant.
No other town does this, that our auditors audit. I would like to review this process when we next organize after town meeting.
We could talk to our new town manager.
We will.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I think it's a good process for us to know what's.
There is maybe a reason, because so many towns had.
Sure, towns without professional staff and treasurers, like if you've got a clerk doing everything.
Well, the professional staff.
Okay, board member concerns. Dan.
Okay, I have a couple. The mini Ilsley had a soft opening on Friday that Heather and I were at, and David and Mark were there. It's really a beautiful site. They've done a great job. And Dana opened it a week early, announced it on Monday during the daytime. Finally got the Wi-Fi settled, and she opened a week early, which was her goal because the kids are out, and so kudos to them. Interesting, in the newspaper also this week, IPJ has listing for 4 Stonecrop units, and one of them is already sold. And it's interesting that the price differences. There's 3-bedroom, 3-bath for like $640, and then there's a 3-bedroom, 3-bath for $440. There's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath for $540, and a 2-bedroom, 2-bath for $340. It's just interesting, and I understand.
A lot of subsidy.
You have to qualify for certain ones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you do. It's interesting, but they've already have on sale, and I think Ilsley Library, also zoning permit was approved today, which is a major step to finally get that thing done after all the issues with the DRB. So, we're good.
All right, Fred?
I attended the meeting in Sarah Partridge Library on Saturday morning with our local town representatives, Amy Sheldon, Robin Shy, and Jubilee McGill, and Senator Hardy. And Amy Sheldon, who's chair of House Natural Resources Environment Committee, was highly complimentary of Emily Charrington. She's been cited as one of the leading people in the area of stormwater projects. Robin Shy and Ruth Hardy wanted to make sure that I reported to Selectboard that they have been very closely following the Budget Adjustment Act, which has come through the House and on the Senate calendar, second reading today, I think. Particularly in regards to the appropriation for storm damage compensation that FEMA did not cover because we weren't in the declaration area. This goes back to 2023 rain. And there's 15 million statewide. She said all of Addison County's towns, things that were not covered then will be covered. You know that they had forgot about it. And I asked about noting some of the major infrastructure items, not only on Middlebury's agenda, town meeting, but other towns, of what might be done to, at the state level anyways, to increase state support for lower interest rates, for bonding for these huge projects, whether that could be done with the treasurer or the state bond bank, and obviously the funding of it would need to come through. But we are lucky that we have two representatives in that Robin Shy is chair of House Appropriations and Ruth Hardy's on the Senate Finance Committee. So I made that pitch, and they were receptive to particularly Robin Shy, who has a banking background. And I wanted to compliment on the staff on the town report, particularly Beth Dow deserves town report preparer. She deserves some credit in there for all of that work. In the past it's been shared, but I know Kathleen did a big part of it. She picked that up, and that's all I have.
Great. Farhad?
I got nothing except a big thank you to the Public Works Department for keeping the roads clear and safe in this snowstorm. We haven't had a snowstorm like this in the last 10 years, I think. It's a pretty significant amount of snow. So, thank you for that. That's all I got.
Okay. Heather?
So I wanted to echo what Dan said about the mini library. I did attend the soft opening, and then I went today and got books. And it is really amazing, and I guess I just want to make sure that we can, as the select board, can you do something to send a thank you to the National Bank of Middlebury, because that whole mini library wouldn't be possible without the bank.
Yeah.
You know, and it's really a tremendous. I know. I mean, I've been in there multiple times. Never realized how big it was. Like I was really surprised, like how much space there was actually in there. Because originally I was thinking, oh, it's gonna be tiny, but it's really lovely. It is really amazing, and I think we're really fortunate. And I think it would be really great to do something to thank the bank for their generosity in that project. And Dan didn't mention, but this Friday night is a Good Night Isley event. If you want to take one last tour through the library as it is, from 3 to 6 is the Good Night Isley event, if anyone's interested. And I think that's probably it. Thank you.
Thank
We're gonna
you.
miss you.
Is it?
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Last meeting.
for sure we are.
Last regular meeting.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do, Dan? You won't have a pen.
Frank's really generous. This is great.
I gotta be, you're beating up on me pretty good.
David should sprinkle some pens on the table.
Yeah.
Just
Andy?
Yeah, so I really wanted to go to the mini library today, but I was here reviewing check warrants until they were closed. But I did stare in the window, and it does look amazing in there, and I will go soon.
I'll take your tomorrow, I'll say.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, that's all.
That's all. Heather, I would like to formally thank you. We've served on the board a long time together, and you've been you've been a leader. You've been a word of you weren't afraid to express your voice, and have had us on numerous occasions relook things that we were doing to say, can we do it better? And that's what we ask for, is that we deliberate and that we don't just easily rubber stamp everything. And citizen government, you did a great job, and we're gonna miss you as a part of it. And just thanks for everything you've done. And we owe you we have not had a lot of downtime here lately. And we need to have a social to farewell you.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Nice.
Thanks
You're
for-
here.
We'll miss you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
And with that, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
And move.
Second?
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Last second.
Oh.